the weather. So we may make this a little bit shorter today, but there's a few things I want to talk about because, sometimes I have to get into the nuts and bolts a little bit of real estate. But before I do that, I want to show you a couple of really interesting pieces of data that I've kind of been hanging on to and wanted to show you. So, this is what we're going to look at first, which is the active U.S. housing inventory for sale according to Realtor.com. And this is broken into years. So every line graph you see is a year. So we have 2017 is mostly at the top of this. Then we have 2018, 19, and so on. But what's really interesting, first of all, 2021 is kind of the lowest inventory from like May. Let's see. 2022 had started out low and then went up a little higher. 2021 kind of did a hump, but mostly was at the low point of our inventory as well. But take a look at 2025. Here's where we're started, and this is the trend that we're on. This is a pretty significant increase in the number of homes, and I will be very interested to see what happens for May and June. But if you're thinking about buying, and you've been kind of depressed with the inventory, I've been depressed with the inventory, guys. Then let's take a look at what's on the market right now, because there's quite a few homes. And I will tell you that I have a client that's looking in a particular home in area in South Carolina. It's a smaller town, about 5,000, 6,000 people in this town. And every house they look at, it's been going under contract. That market's really busy. Our market's getting busier. I have a client, which is a reason we're going to talk today about what we're going to talk about. I've got a client that lost out on a house over the weekend, and it just flew off the market. So, here we have a pretty busy, it looks like spring. We've got a decent amount of inventory. And from my point of view, this is good. This means that people are not hanging on to those 3.5% interest rates. Even though they have them, they also have a lot of equity they can unlock by selling those homes if they've owned their home since 2017, 18, 19. And so it's important as home buyers, home sellers, to take a look at the inventory numbers and where we're going. Obviously, 2020, 2021, it was hard. Okay, 2022 was really hard because interest rates were low and you were competing with other buyers. What you're not doing right now is getting into many multiple offer situations. I'm sorry, I keep flipping over on that one. I'll keep my hand off my mouse for a second. But we have not been seeing the inventory. I mean, look at 2021 and this area right here. I mean, this was abysmal. And 22 started out pretty bad. So where I'm seeing this, I mean, we haven't had this much inventory since 2020. We looked at some stuff yesterday that showed that we were more on track with like 2019 with price, with some of the data that we had. So let's just keep an eye on this, and we'll take a look at what's happening as we go through the year. But I would expect this number to continue to rise. Now, this is not any earth-shattering data here, but these are active housing inventory for sale for April, and these you can see April from 2018 to 2025, and on this section in the right, it's April 25 compared to pre-pandemic April 2019. So these are the active inventory markets. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So we're 18 on this list. Holy smokes, look at the inventory in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, like 48,000 houses. Woo. All right. So what we've got here is 2018. We had 7,503 homes on the market, April 2018. And now we have 3,884. Okay. If you look at April 25 compared to pre-pandemic April 2019, we are 1.8, we're negative 1.8%. Okay. What does this mean? It means we need more inventory. That's what it means. It means we need more inventory. We need people to put their homes on the market, but we are getting better. And if you look at some of these states down here, some of these towns like Virginia Beach, that's rough, 54%, negative 54%. You know, let's see, Grand Rapids, Michigan, negative 44.1%. Pittsburgh, PA is a negative 37.6. You know, these are cities that are seriously lacking in inventory. And then we have like Santa Clara, San Jose, which is at 3%. Oklahoma City at 4.4. And I'm going to tell you something about Oklahoma City. If you've never been to Oklahoma, you should go. It's a great place to go. People are so stinking friendly. I went last fall with my 86 and 80-year-old mother, 86-year-old father, to the Oklahoma South Carolina football game out in Norman. And everybody was incredibly nice to me, even though South Carolina absolutely kicked the pants off of Oklahoma. So, but just a great place to go. If it's off the beaten path a little bit when it comes to like where people like to go for vacation. Great town. I thoroughly enjoyed my visit there. And if you ever get a chance to go, I'm sure you will too. But the point here is that we're lacking in inventory. Here's Houston, Pasadena, Texas area, 9.2%. SeaTac, Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue, Washington, 10%. Phoenix, 18%. Nashville's 20.5%. So all these areas here are seeing positive growth from 20, like where they were at 2019 in inventory in 2025 is above that 2019 number. So there's a lot of that. There is Denver's got 59.7% more inventory in April 2025 than in April 2018. So a lot of these cities have turned around their inventory shortages. We're almost there, but not quite. Okay. So that's what I got for you today. So here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about backup offers. Okay. I have a client who missed out on a house this weekend, and it was supposed to be coming soon for a while. It wasn't. We felt like we had time. We did not. The house went on the market quickly, went off the market very quickly. And my clients asked me to go take a look at it. And I have gone to take a look at it. And they are deciding whether or not they're going to place a backup offer. I had a conversation with the listing agent who wasn't real sure that there was a benefit to her clients for having a backup offer. So that's what we're going to talk about first. So what's happening here is if my clients want to be in second position, which is what that would place them if they put in a backup offer, what's the benefit? And so I thought I would talk a little bit about those benefits. So for a buyer, what is the benefit of a backup offer? Well, it secures a position. So it puts them next in line, increasing their chances of purchasing that house if something falls through. It allows for negotiating leverage. Okay. If the primary deal falls apart, the seller may be more motivated to negotiate favorable terms with the backup buyer to avoid relisting. Now, we're going to talk about that a little bit because North Carolina does that a little different. It keeps options open. Buyers can pursue other properties while maintaining a stake in the desired home that they want. So they can continue to look at homes and know that they're in the backup position on the house that they really want. But so they might have a foot in the door, but it still allows them to go look at other homes. So for sellers, what's the advantage? There's a safety net. If offer contract number 1 falls apart, there is number 2 waiting in the wings. They have more leverage. You can use the existence of a backup offer to pressure the primary buyer to meet contingencies or not ask for repairs, things of that nature, to avoid losing the transaction. Okay. And if the primary deal falls apart, the seller can quickly move to the backup offer without relisting. So it's going to minimize market time. Okay. And we all know that a house that comes, if it goes under contract and then comes back on the market, has a little bit different of a feel because of having time off the market. Now, what are the disadvantages? Well, for a buyer, you got to wait. And there's no guarantee that you're going to go from the backup position to the primary. So there's a little uncertainty. You don't have much control over it. It's just a thing. You have to kind of wait for both parties, the buyer number 1 and seller, to do their thing. And if things go south, then you can step in. But for now, you're sort of powerless. It's like a man without a country. Okay. Now, for sellers, well, it could be a little more complicated with negotiations. I don't think so, but it does complicate things because you do have a backup offer. But I think a backup offer can be a very powerful tool for not only a seller, but a buyer. So I wanted to go over the backup addendum for a minute so that we could talk about kind of what does this document look like, and how do we utilize it for my buyer? How do I make this an attractive situation? So the first thing that you need to know is that not only are you going to send this backup contract addendum, but in the state of North Carolina, where this house is, you actually have to write an offer to purchase. So that is where you're going to put the terms of your offer. What are the terms? What's the offer price? How much due diligence money are you putting into this? How much earnest money are you putting into this? How long do you need to close? Are there any contingencies? So these are the things that you're going to tell the seller about you, in hopes that they will accept your offer or, work with you in case something happens to offer number 1 or contract number 1. Now, so basically what this document talks about is like some of the nuts and bolts of a contract. Okay. Buyer and seller agree that buyer may not examine or otherwise have access to the property, the primary contract, without written permission. So you don't get your hands on that contract. You don't get to see what the other terms are. If the primary contract closes, then the secondary or backup offer becomes null and void. In the event that the primary contract is terminated, the seller will promptly provide buyer and the following 2 items: written notice stating that the backup contract has become primary, and written evidence that the primary contract has been terminated. Okay. You have to have both things in order to go under contract again. Okay. Earnest money. Now let's talk about the money situation. Earnest money is to be delivered to the escrow agent, our attorney, our closing attorney. So what you do first is you if you want to, you deposit at the signing of this addendum, you're depositing earnest money. Okay. Now, personally, I would not. I would do additional earnest money in this case. And additional earnest money keeps you from depositing any money and tying up your funds into an account that's just going to sit for 30 days. So this is going to, if you do additional earnest money, then it is to be delivered to the escrow agent within a certain number of days of being notified that buyer number one is out. Okay. So you have a certain number of days to do that. Due diligence fee is to be delivered within 2 days. Okay. And I just threw some numbers in here, like what's the due diligence period? And then the settlement date. Okay. And we'll do like 20 days from contract acceptance, 30 days from contract acceptance, whatever. Buyer has the right to terminate this backup contract without liability prior to anything happening. So let's say, for instance, my folks write a backup offer on this house and it's accepted. They continue to look and they find another property. They can notify the seller that they are pulling out. No questions asked. You just walk. Okay. And then there is automatic termination. This just says in any event, the buyer must receive notice of primary status from seller no later than 5 p.m. on what day, okay, or the backup contract becomes null and void. So if buyer number one walks away for whatever reason, how long do you have to go from, you know, you being a backup offer to you being a primary? How long does it take for you to have legal notification? I would think 24 hours, like within 24 hours, you will know. So this is kind of the nuts and bolts of it. So you're going to write your offer like normal, and then you're going to submit this backup offer. And really what it does is just puts you in second position. So in case offer number one falls through, then they can come to you and say, hey, look, we're going to put you in primary position. And that's really what it is. Now, why would a seller want a backup offer? You know, we talked about the pros and cons, and it really comes down to leverage. Okay. If the seller has a backup offer, and typically backup offers are at list or above list because you've got somebody that really wants that property. If it's at list or above list, then you are, you know, you've got maybe an offer where somebody's at list, and then an offer secondary where there's someone higher than list. Okay. And then what happens if buyer number one comes in with $10,000 or $15,000 in repairs that they're demanding? You know, you can get out of that by just saying no. And if the buyer walks, you've got another route to getting a house on the market that fast. So this is why, as a buyer or as a seller, you can use a backup offer to your advantage to keep you from making repairs, because you don't, you know, if you have a backup offer and you've got a buyer that brings you a laundry list of repairs, all you have to say is, look, I appreciate this, but, you know, in the state of North Carolina, the house is sold as is, and this house is being sold as is. We're not making any repairs. And I have a backup offer in case you're wondering. So this is really where I, as an agent, enjoy a backup offer, because there's leverage, but there's also some leverage on the buy side as well. So if you know, if you feel like you've ever lost out on a house and want to know how to keep that from happening again, or maybe slide into the first position, this backup offer, backup addendum is the right thing to use. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to go. I hope you had a really good day. Happy Tuesday. The weather is beautiful. It doesn't feel like hell is cracking open yet, but I'm sure it's coming soon enough. Enjoy it while we can. If you want to receive my newsletter, Charlotte Market Buzz, CLT Market BUZZ.com is where you'll find my sign up. And I'd love for you to sign up so you can get my weekly newsletter. And I hope to see you here tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. every single day of the week. We talk about real estate and how it will affect you. Today we talk contracts. I love, love, love talking contracts. And I want to mention something about them. Look, these are legally binding contracts. You can end up in court over these contracts. If you are working with an agent that isn't explaining them to you, have them explain the situation, because it's such an important thing for many, many buyers. Like, this is the biggest purchase you might ever make, and you need to know what you're signing. So if you're in the middle of a transaction or you've just started to work with someone, ask questions. Ask what you signed. Ask what this means. Have them paraphrase for you the transaction documents that you're signing so that you have an understanding of what's going on. All right, guys, that's going to be it for today. I hope you had a good day. I hope you learned something a little bit, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.